All right, without further ado, what I'm going to show you is our lab. Now, I don't want anyone to get nervous or anxious about this. We're actually going to begin relatively simply. Now, that's going to be focusing on the on-prem controllers. Now, keep in mind that these are attached to the internet. Now, I'm calling them on-prem because I'm maintaining them. Cisco's not going to be maintaining them for me. I could very easily just contract with Cisco and have Cisco provide these services. Now, in order to be able to interact with these devices that's in this blue square, I'm going to have two ways to do it. First of all, I'm going to bring up my secure CRT session here, and you can see I have a command line session into vManager, into vBond, and into vSmart. Now, this is going to be the order in which we build these components. And I also have my jump box that I mentioned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on the jump box, and that's going to let me download a RDP session. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open my RDP session controller here, and since this is Pod 1's student lab, all I'm going to do is just drag this over. Actually, I'll do it this way. I will drag it over to here and put it in here on this site right here, and then I'll just go ahead and fix this back. You guys can excuse all the open apps up here. I'll go ahead and close these. And I can't close that one because I'm uploading some files. But right now, what we're going to see here is I have the on-prem controllers. I have the shell session to be able to get into them. Now what I want to do is I want to get into my jump box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do some editing first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit. And what I'm going to do is change the name of this to Pod 1 sd-wan. And I'm going to go ahead and map a folder because I'm going to need to move some files from my desktop. So I'll go ahead and set that up. And then all I'm going to do is just double click on this. And this should allow me to open a session to my management CA server, hopefully. I'm in the process of uploading some stuff, so things are going to be running pretty slow. I'm just going to log in. And here we are. I'm now actually in this box right here. Now, as I said, I'm using Eve. And if you're using and you're taking this class, you're going to be following through in the workbook, and you'll be using Eve. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a basic walkthrough on how I'm going to set up my operational environment. Now that's actually going to begin right here with my control switch. And what I want to do right now is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say en config t. I'm going to say enter. Well, let's just go ahead and just create some VLANs. So I'll make VLAN 100 since this is the network I said I was going to use, 172.1.100.0.24. And every pod will use the same network infrastructure. That way we're isolated from each other. We're not going to be able to cause problems or have any issues. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to assign VLAN 100 to all of these VLANs. So I'm going to say interface range E0023 and E0, E10. That's going to encompass all four of these interfaces and this red interface going down to my CSR 1000V. And I'm going to say switch port mode, access, switch port access, VLAN 100, no shut. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create that SVI interface that I said I was going to create. So I'll say interface VLAN 100, IP address 172.1.100, and I said I would give it the IP address of 253.255.255.255.0. No shut, end, show IP interface brief. And we see here that I have that interface in place. Now all I'm going to do is just go ahead and give it a host name. So I'll say config t and I'll say host name, and we'll say CTRL to match what's in the Eve setup. And then I'll say copy, run, start. Next thing I want to do is I want to go into my management certificate authority box, my jump box. And what I'm going to do is there I'm going to go ahead and do the basic configuration to give it an IP address. So I'm going to go to applications, I'm going to go to system tools, I'm going to go to the mate terminal, and I'm going to type ifconfig ethernet 0, and let's see if I have an IP address, and I do not. I want one. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just statically assign one here. I could do DHCP, it's not a problem. I'm just going to take the path of least resistance here. I'm going to say ifconfig ETH0 172.1.100.1 with a net mask of 255.255.255.0. Now I want a default route. I will say route add default gateway 172.1.100.254. And now if all goes well, I should be able to ping that SVI. So I'll say ping 172.1.100.253, and I can. Now I'm going to see if I can ping my gateway. I haven't set it up in here. So my gateway is all the way down on my router. I don't think I have set it up. So let's go ahead and do that while we're thinking about it. So you'll notice it says destination to host unreachable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here to my CSR 1000V that I'm going to be using in this topology. I'm going to try to. There it goes. And what I'll do is I'm going to say config t, config t. I'll say host name. This is internet. And if I look at the interface, it's going to be G1. So all I'll do is say interface G1. I will say description to on-prem controllers. And again, this will be in your lab guide. And then I'm just going to give it an IP address. IP address 172.100.254.255.255.255.0. No shut. And all I'm going to do is go back to my host and see if I can actually ping. So we'll take a look at the host now, and I have actual reachability. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use this jump box to make configurations. And the very first thing that I want to configure is going to be the settings for my vManage server. Now, I'm going to log in. The default passwords are admin, admin. And it's going to give me an option. And that option is going to be to build out the drive that I'm going to use to store runtime information, configurations, and things along those lines. And I'm going to pick HDB. So it's going to be 1. So I'll just come over here and hit 1. And what it's going to do is it's going to ask me, do I want to format it? I'll say yes. And it's going to go through the build process where it's going to actually create this drive. Now, I can't do anything until such time that this is finished. I'm not going to drag you guys through this process. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to stop the video, and then I'll come back once it's finished. And then what we'll do is we'll entertain a little bit of conversation about what happened and how we need to prepare the vManage resource in order to be able to get things operational in our topology. I'm Terry Vincent, and I'll see you guys just as soon as this thing's done.